The office of Kim Jun was the highest place in the city. It was at the top of a building so tall it seemed to scratch the sky. The room was huge, quiet, and very clean. The walls were a smooth, cool gray. There were no pictures or decorations. The only light came from the blue and white glow of numbers and graphs that floated in the air. These were holograms, showing the business of a man who owned parts of other worlds. Kim Jun sat behind a wide desk made of a single piece of dark metal. He was a man in his 40s. His hair was neat and his face showed no feeling. He wore a simple, expensive gray suit. He looked at the floating numbers, his eyes moving quickly. He was checking the reports from his mining ships on a faraway moon. This was his life. This was his empire. It was built on data, control, and silence. A soft sound broke the quiet. A door hissed open. His assistant, a young man named Lee Su, stepped into the room. Su looked nervous. He always looked a little nervous around June. "Sir," Su said. His voice was tight. "I am sorry to interrupt. There is a problem in the main lobby." June did not look up from the graphs. "What kind of problem?" he asked. His voice was flat like a machine. "It is a child, sir. A little girl. Security cannot make her leave." Now June looked up. His eyes were dark and still. "A child? That is not a problem. That is a situation. Tell security to remove the situation." "They have tried, sir. She will not go. She is asking for you, by name. She says she has something you must buy." This was strange. June did not like strange things. Strange things were not logical. They were not efficient. He felt a flicker of annoyance. He waved his hand. A large video screen appeared in the air next to his desk. It showed the live feed from the building's lobby. The lobby was a vast space of shining white marble and chrome. It was meant to impress and intimidate people. In the middle of this grand room stood a very small girl. She was a black child, maybe 8 or 9 years old. Her hair was tied back in many neat braids. She wore a simple blue dress and old but clean shoes. She looked tiny and out of place. In her arms she held a book. It was an old book with a faded cloth cover. 2 large security androids stood over her. They were machines made of polished steel, built to be frightening. Their red optical sensors glowed down at her. "You must leave," one of them said in a smooth, electronic voice. The little girl did not move. She held the book tighter to her chest. She lifted her chin. "No," she said. Her voice was small, but it was clear and firm. "Not until I see him. I have to see Kim Jun." June watched the screen. He was a man who understood power. He saw it in stock markets and boardrooms. But this was different. This was a different kind of strength. This small girl was showing a strength he had not seen in a long time. His annoyance faded, replaced by a small, cold curiosity. "Bring her up," June said. Lee Su looked shocked. "Sir, are you sure?" "The security scan her for any weapons or devices. Then bring her to me." June's tone allowed no argument. Su bowed quickly and left the room. June turned off the floating graphs. The room became even quieter. He sat back in his chair and waited. He looked out the massive window. Below him, the city of Seoul was a blanket of lights and moving traffic. He was above it all, separate. He wondered what a little girl with a book could possibly want from him. A few minutes later, the door opened again. Lee Su came in first, his face still worried. Then the little girl walked in. She seemed even smaller in the huge office. Her eyes were wide as she looked around at the high ceiling and the big window. But she was not scared. She walked right up to the big metal desk and looked at the man behind it. Kim Jun looked down at her. "You asked for me," he said. It was not a question. The girl nodded. "Are you Kim Jun?" "I am. My name is Chloe," she said. She held out the book. "I need to sell this to you." June looked at the book but did not take it. It was old and worn. It looked worthless. "I do not buy things from children," he said. His voice was not unkind, but it was not warm either. It was a fact. "I am a businessman. I deal in companies. In spaceships. In the future. Not in old books. This is not just any book," Chloe said. She pushed it a little closer to him. Her small hands were clean, but her nails were short and a little rough. "It is very important. My grandma told me to bring it to you. She said you would understand." June felt another flicker of impatience. "I did not know your grandmother. Why would she send you to me?" "Her name was Park Hana," Chloe said. The name meant nothing to him at first. It was just a name. Then something stirred in the back of his mind. A memory old and covered in dust. A picture of a green park. The smell of rain on grass. Chloe saw the small change in his eyes. She was a smart girl and she saw that he was listening now. She took a small step forward. She told me to tell you something else. She said to tell you it is from the girl by the willow tree. At Kyunghee University, the memory was not a picture anymore. It was a feeling. It was a sudden, sharp pain in his chest. It was the sound of a young woman's laughter. It was the shade of a willow tree on a warm afternoon. It was a life he had left behind 30 years ago. His cool businessman's face cracked. For 1 second, the man behind the money was visible. His eyes lost their focus. His mouth opened just a little. He looked from the girl's face to the book in her hands. "Hana," he whispered. The name felt strange in his mouth. He had not said it in a very, very long time. He reached out his hand. His fingers, which usually moved with quick, precise motions, were slow. They trembled slightly. He took the book from her. The cover was soft from years of being held. He ran his thumb over it. He could not speak. Chloe watched him. She saw that her job was almost done. "She said you would know what it is. She said you are the only one who should have it." June looked at the girl. He saw the earnest look in her eyes. He saw the hope. He was a man who dealt in facts. But this was a fact he could not process. A ghost from his past had sent a messenger to his fortress. "Lee Soo," June said, his voice rough. He cleared his throat. "Take Chloe to the waiting room. See that she gets something to eat." "Something sweet." Sue, looking confused but relieved, nodded. "Of course, sir. Come with me, young lady." Chloe gave one last look at the man and the diary, then followed the assistant out of the room. The door hissed shut. Kim June was alone again. But the room did not feel the same. The sterile silence was gone. It was now filled with the echoes of the past. He looked down at the simple, worn book in his hands. For a long time he just sat there holding it. He was Kim June, the billionaire. He owned fleets of starships. He controlled the fate of thousands of workers. But in that moment he felt like a young, scared boy again. Slowly, carefully he opened the cover. The first page was filled with elegant handwritten words. The ink was faded to brown. He knew that handwriting. It belonged to Park Hana, the girl from the willow tree. He started to read. Create more chapters, headings, or parts numbers in each par. The diary felt heavy in Kim June's hands. It was not a physical weight. The book itself was light, but it held the weight of a life he had forgotten. He sat in his large chair, the lights of the city twinkling behind him like a field of distant stars. He was alone in his quiet, perfect office. But for the first time, the quiet felt loud. He looked at the first page. The writing was in Korean, in a graceful, flowing script. He knew this handwriting. It was like seeing the face of an old friend. It was Park Hana's writing. The first entry had a date from more than 30 years ago. It was the spring. June remembered that spring. He was a different person then. He began to read. Today was a strange and wonderful day. I was sitting under the old willow tree by the library, trying to read for my art history class. The sun was warm. Then I saw him. A boy was sitting a little ways off under the same tree. He was reading a book about orbital mechanics. His clothes were old but very clean. He had the most serious face I have ever seen. He looked like he was carrying the whole world on his shoulders. June stopped reading. He closed his eyes. He could see it. He could see the green of the grass. He could smell the damp earth under the tree. He was that boy. He was so poor then. He had one good shirt. He had gotten a scholarship to the university, but it was a constant struggle. He was always hungry. He was always afraid of failing. He spent all his time studying, trying to build a future out of nothing. He opened his eyes and read on. I said hello to him. He looked up surprised. His name is June, Kim June. His eyes are so dark and deep. When he finally smiled just a little, it was like the sun came out from behind a cloud. We talked for a long time. He is so smart. He wants to build things. He wants to reach the stars. But there is a sadness in him, a deep loneliness. I want to know more about him. I want to know what makes him so sad. June put the book down on his desk. He stood up and walked to the big window. He looked down at the city below. He lived in a world of steel and glass now. He had reached the stars just like he said he would. But he had not thought about that sadness in a long time. He had buried it under mountains of money and work. He went back to the desk. He had to keep reading. He turned the page. The next entries were happier. Hana wrote about their walks across the campus. She wrote about their talks under the willow tree. She wrote about his dreams. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. June told me about his idea for a new kind of spaceship engine today. He drew the designs in the dirt with a stick. I did not understand all the math, but I understood the fire in his eyes. He is a genius. I told him so. He shook his head and said he was just a boy from a poor town. He does not see his own worth. He thinks he has to achieve great things to be worth anything. I wish he could see that he is already enough. June read these words, and they felt like a hand squeezing his heart. He remembered that day. He remembered the feeling of someone truly listening to him. Hana did not care that he was poor. She cared about his mind. She cared about his heart. The diary was a map of a young love. It was simple and pure. Hana wrote about saving her lunch money so she could buy him a warm meal. She wrote about drawing pictures of him while he studied. She saw the beauty in his intense focus. I sketched June today. He was so absorbed in his book he did not notice me. He has a strong profile. He looks like a lonely king from an old story. A king who has lost his kingdom and is trying to build a new one with his own 2 hands. I think that is what he is doing. He is building his own kingdom. I hope I can be a part of it. As he read, June felt a tightness in his throat. He had not allowed himself to feel these things for decades. He had taught himself that feelings were a weakness. They got in the way of logic and success. But reading Hana's words, he remembered the warmth. He remembered what it was like to not be alone. The entries continued like this for many pages. They were full of hope and young love. But then, the tone of the writing began to change. It became worried. June is talking about leaving the university. He says it is too slow. He says the corporate path will take too long. He has met some men. They are from an off-world business syndicate. They are not good men. I can feel it. They see his brilliance and they want to use it. He says they will give him the money he needs to start his company. He is so tempted. I am afraid for him. June remembered this too. It was the turning point. The syndicate offered him a dangerous shortcut. They were involved in shady business, but they had capital. They saw his potential and offered to fund his first project. It was a chance to escape poverty forever. The next entry was short and sad. We had a fight today, a terrible fight, under our willow tree. I begged him not to take their offer. I told him it was a trap. I told him he was trading his soul for a quick success. He got angry. He said I did not understand. He said sentiment was a luxury he could not afford. He said love would not build starships. He walked away. I called after him, but he did not look back. June stopped reading. He could remember the heat of that argument. He could remember the look on Hana's face. Her eyes were full of tears. He had seen her pain, but he was too proud and too desperate to listen. He thought she was being weak. He thought she was trying to hold him back. He had chosen the syndicate. He had chosen the path of power and money. He had walked away from the willow tree and from Park Hana. He had buried the memory of her deep down, telling himself it was a necessary loss. He told himself that to build an empire you had to make hard choices. He thought that was the end of the story. He thought the diary would stop there. But there were many more pages. The writing was different now. It was older. The ink was a different color. He turned the page and continued to read. This part was written years later. Hana had moved on. She had married a kind man. She had a daughter. They moved to a new colony planet. She wrote about her life there. It was a happy life full of love and family. But she never forgot June. I saw a news report today, Kim June. His company, Ethelgard, is now a major player in deep space mining. He looks so different, so cold, so distant. He has the empire he wanted. But I saw his eyes on the screen. They are the same sad eyes I remember. The loneliness is still there. It is even deeper now. He got everything he thought he wanted, and I fear he lost everything that truly mattered. June read this, and the tightness in his throat became unbearable. She had seen right through him. From light years away, she had seen the truth. He had spent 30 years building walls around himself. He thought he was strong. But Hana, with her simple words from the past, saw the lonely boy was still inside, trapped in a castle of his own making. He kept reading, page after page. Hana wrote about her life, her family, her thoughts. She always mentioned seeing his name in the news. She always wondered about him. She always hoped he was okay. He came to the last entry. The date was from just a few months ago. The writing was a little shaky, but it was still her hand. My dearest June, if you are reading this, then my granddaughter found you. I am an old woman now. My life has been full and happy. I have no regrets, but I have never stopped thinking about you. I watch you on the news, a king in a crystal castle, and my heart aches. You built your empire just as you said you would, but I see the loneliness in your eyes even through the screens. You got all the power in the world, but I fear you lost yourself to get it. June's vision blurred. A hot tear fell from his eye and landed on the page, smudging the old ink. He did not wipe it away. This diary is not a love letter to the past. It is a mirror. Look into it, June. Remember the boy who dreamed under the willow tree. Remember his dreams. Remember his heart. He is not gone. He is the only thing worth saving, please. Find him again. Kim June, the billionaire, the tycoon, the man of power, put his head in his hands, and in the silence of his perfect office he wept. He wept for the boy he had been. He wept for the love he had thrown away. He wept for the 30 years he had spent being lonely in a crowd of people. Hana's words had broken through all his defenses. She had given him the truth. And the truth was that he was a very rich and a very empty man. Kim June did not move for a long time. The tears dried on his face, leaving tight, salty tracks. He felt hollowed out. The diary lay open on his desk, the final words seeming to glow in the dim light. He is the only thing worth saving. For 30 years he had built his life on a simple idea. Feelings were a flaw. Connections were a weakness. Love was a distraction. He had prided himself on being a machine of logic and ambition. He had thought his success proved he was right, but Hana's words were a key that unlocked a door he had sealed shut. Behind that door was not just sadness, but a terrible, crushing truth. He had been wrong. He had chosen the wrong path. He looked around his office. The gray walls, the floating data streams, the silent, perfect order of it all. It was not a symbol of his victory. It was his prison. He was the lonely king in the crystal castle, just as Hana had said. He had everything and he had nothing. The holographic clock on his wall showed it was the middle of the night. He had been reading for hours. He stood up. His body felt heavy. He walked to the window and looked down at the city. The lights of 1,000 offices and homes twinkled below. Each light was a person. Each person had a life, a family, a story. He had none of that. He had a spreadsheet. He thought about the little girl, Chloe. She had a grandmother who loved her so much that she sent her on an important mission. She had a family. She had a history. What did he have? A list of companies he owned. A fleet of ships that mined rocks on dead moons. He picked up the diary again. He turned to a random page from the early happy days. June laughed today. A real deep laugh. It was the most wonderful sound. I told a silly joke and he threw his head back and laughed. I felt like I had given him a great gift. I wish he could laugh more often. June tried to remember the last time he had laughed like that. He could not. He made deals. He gave orders. He sometimes smiled a cold, satisfied smile when he won a business battle. But he did not laugh from joy. A cold anger began to mix with his sadness. He was not angry at Hana. He was not angry at Chloe. He was angry at himself. He had wasted so much time. He had thrown away the one thing that truly mattered for a mountain of money. He thought about the fight under the willow tree. He remembered the hard look in his own eyes. He remembered telling Hana that love would not build starships. He had been so arrogant, so blind. Now he had the starships. He had the money. And it was all dust in his mouth. He sat back down at his desk. The floating screens were still dark. He did not want to see the numbers. He did not care about the mining yields or the stock prices. None of it meant anything. He thought about Hana's life. She had chosen a different path. A path of love and family. She lived on a colony world. She had a daughter. She had a granddaughter who loved her enough to cross the city to fulfill her last wish. Hana had died surrounded by love. What would his death be like? Alone in this room with his lawyers and his money managers? The question terrified him. He opened the diary to the last page once more. Find him again. How? The boy from the willow tree was gone. He was buried under 30 years of calculated decisions and cold ambition. That boy was full of dreams. This man had achieved those dreams and found them empty. That boy believed in connection. This man had spent a lifetime avoiding it, but the boy's heart was still there. He could feel it now, aching in his chest. Hana had made him feel it again. He knew what he had to do. It was not a business plan. It was not a corporate strategy. It was something much simpler and much more frightening. He had to change. He could not bring back the past. He could not get those 30 years back. He could not get Hana back, but he could honor her memory. He could honor the truth she showed him. He looked at the diary. It was not just a book. It was a message about what was truly important in life. It was a message about humanity, about connection, about love. He made a decision. He would stop building his empire for himself. He would use it for something else, for something that would have made the boy under the willow tree proud. He tapped a button on his desk. A soft chime sounded. A few moments later, the door opened and Lee Soo walked in. The young assistant looked tired and worried. He had probably been waiting all night, sir. Are you all right? Sue asked. He had never seen his boss look like this. The man's eyes were red, but they had a new, strange intensity. I am fine, Sue, June said. His voice was quiet but firm. I need you to do something. First, I want you to find Chloe and her mother. I want to know that they are taken care of. Not just with money. I want to know they have a good home. I want to know she can go to any school she wants. Do you understand? Sue nodded, surprised. Yes, sir. Of course. Good. Second, I want you to cancel all my meetings for the next week. Sue's eyes widened. Sir? The Antares merger is on Monday. It is a 70 billion credit deal. The board, cancel it, June said. There was no anger in his voice, only a finality that was even more powerful. Tell the board I am not interested. Not interested? Sue could not believe what he was hearing. Third, June continued, I am starting a new project. I want you to get me the heads of all our research divisions on a call tomorrow. Medical, education, environmental, and agricultural tech. Sue was frantically taking notes on his datapad. A new project? What is the project called, sir? June looked out the window at the first light of dawn touching the city. We will call it the Human Legacy Project, he said. He looked back at Sue. We are going to stop focusing only on profit. We are going to start focusing on people. I want our company to help people. I want to build hospitals on colony worlds that cannot afford them. I want to create libraries of knowledge for everyone to access for free. I want to develop cheap, clean water systems for struggling communities. Lee Soo stood in stunned silence. He looked at his boss, trying to see if this was some kind of test. June saw the confusion on his face. This is not a joke, Sue. This is the new direction of the company. We are going to use our resources to make life better. That is an order. Sue finally found his voice. Yes, sir. I will. I will make the arrangements. And one more thing, June said, his voice softening just a little. I need you to find a piece of land for me, on the old Kyunghee University campus. There was a willow tree there. I want to know if it is still there. If it is not, I want to plant a new one. Lee Soo just nodded. He did not understand what had happened in this office tonight. But he knew that the man in front of him was different. The cold, impenetrable shell was gone. In its place was someone who seemed human. Right away, sir, Sue said, and he quietly left the room. Kim June was alone again, but the silence felt different now. It was not empty. It was full of possibility. He picked up Hana's diary and held it gently. He had spent his life building walls. Now he would spend the rest of it building bridges. It would not be easy. The board of directors would fight him. Other companies would see it as a weakness. But he did not care. He had looked into the mirror that Hana gave him. He had seen the truth, and he would not look away. He was going to find the boy under the willow tree, and he was going to set him free. The news spread through the business world like a shockwave. Kim June, the most feared and ruthless tycoon, had gone mad. That was the only explanation. He had canceled the massive Antares merger. He had fired his entire aggressive acquisitions team. He was talking about hospitals and schools. Lee Soo stood in the new, smaller office of his boss. This room was different. It had a warm wooden floor. There were a few green plants in the corners. A real physical bookshelf stood against one wall. The big window still had a view, but the feeling was not cold anymore. On the screen, the face of Mr. Park, the head of the Ethelgard Board of Directors, was red with anger. "June, this is insanity," Park shouted. "The Human Legacy Project? It is a joke. Our shareholders want profits, not philanthropy. You are destroying the company we built." June listened calmly. He had expected this. He sipped his tea. The company we built, Park, was built on fear and greed. It was successful, but it was empty. "We are changing direction." "Changing direction? You are driving us off a cliff." Park sputtered. "You are reallocating 50% of our research budget to these charity projects. Medical tech for the Outer Rim? Affordable terraforming? Who will pay for this?" "Everyone will pay for it," June said, his voice steady. "Because everyone will benefit. A healthy, educated galaxy is a more stable and prosperous galaxy. It is a better long-term investment than another weapon system. This is not the man I built an empire with," Park yelled. "What happened to you?" June glanced at the simple, worn diary on his desk. "I remembered something," he said quietly. "The vote is tomorrow. Let the board decide." He ended the call. The screen went dark. Li Su let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "That was, intense, sir," Su said. "It is only the beginning," June replied. "Is the team ready for the presentation?" "Yes, sir." "They are waiting." The next day, the entire board of directors gathered in the main conference room. The air was thick with tension. They were all powerful, rich people. They saw June's new plan as a threat to their wealth. June walked into the room. He did not wear his usual severe gray suit. He wore a simple dark blue jacket. He carried no data pad. He carried a small old book. "Gentlemen," he began, "you are here because you think I have lost my mind. You think I am throwing away your money?" A few of the board members grumbled in agreement. "For 30 years, June continued, I have pursued one goal: growth. More money. More power. More control. I believed that was the meaning of success. I was wrong." He held up the diary. "This book was given to me by a little girl. It was written by someone I knew a long time ago. It reminded me of a simple truth. Our purpose is not just to accumulate wealth. Our purpose is to leave the universe a better place than we found it." One of the board members, a man named Mr. Lee, laughed. "This is a corporate boardroom, June, not a philosophy class. We are here to make money." "We will still make money," June said, "but we will make it by building, not by breaking. Look at this." He waved his hand and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared. "These are the colony worlds on the Outer Rim. Their medical facilities are basic. Sickness spreads easily. We have the technology to help. We can build clinics. We can provide cheap diagnostic equipment. A healthy workforce is a productive workforce. It is also the right thing to do." He changed the display. "Education? We can create digital libraries. We can send learning pods to remote planets. An educated population creates new ideas, new markets. It creates stability." He talked for an hour. He showed them plans and projections. But he also talked about people. He talked about the little girl, Chloe. He talked about the millions of people like her who just needed a chance. He did not plead. He did not beg. He spoke with a calm, powerful certainty that they had never heard from him before. The anger in the room slowly faded, replaced by thoughtfulness. "Your plan is idealistic," Mr. Park said, his voice much quieter now. "The risks are enormous." "The greatest risk," June said, looking each of them in the eye, "is to continue on our current path. To be remembered as the company that hoarded wealth while the galaxy suffered. I do not want that legacy. And I do not think you do either." He put the diary down on the table. "This is my final decision as the majority shareholder. I am moving forward with the Human Legacy Project. You can stand with me or you can stand aside." There was a long silence. The board members looked at each other. They saw the new fire in June's eyes. They saw that he could not be moved. And some of them, deep down, remembered that they too had once dreamed of more than just money. One by one, they nodded. The vote was not unanimous. But it passed. The change in Ethelgard was not instant, but it was swift. Press releases went out. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The cold, predatory corporation was suddenly donating medical ships. It was funding agricultural research on barren worlds. It was offering free engineering scholarships. At first, the stock price dipped. The analysts on the news channels predicted doom. They said Kim Jong had gone soft. They said his competitors would destroy him. But then something unexpected happened. Public opinion shifted. People started to see Ethelgard in a new light. The best and brightest engineers and scientists, the ones who wanted to make a difference, began applying for jobs there. Colonial governments who had feared Ethelgard now welcomed their help. They started giving Ethelgard favorable contracts, trusting them more than the other, more ruthless corporations. Within a year, the stock price not only recovered, it soared to new heights. The galaxy had rewarded June's gamble. It turned out that being good for humanity was also good for business. June stood in his office reading a report. It was about the first hospital ship arriving at a struggling colony. There were pictures of smiling families. He felt a feeling he had not felt in a long time. It was not the cold satisfaction of a deal won. It was warmth. It was pride. Li Su came in, a smile on his face. The initial reports from the Proxima colony are in, sir. The water purification systems are a complete success. Disease rates have dropped by 80%. June nodded. Good, that is very good. He looked out the window. The city was the same, but he was different. He was no longer the lonely king in the crystal castle. He was a builder. He was a gardener, planting seeds for a better future. Hana's diary had not just saved him. It was helping him save a little piece of the universe. And for the first time in 30 years, Kim June felt like he was finally home. The air on Earth was different. It was not the filtered, sterile air of his office tower or his starship. It was full of smells. There was the smell of wet soil, of green leaves, of life. Kim June stood on a small, quiet piece of land on the old university campus. He wore simple trousers and a plain shirt. He looked like any other man visiting the park. In front of him was a young willow tree. Its branches were still thin and delicate, swaying gently in the breeze. It was a sapling grown from a cutting of the original tree. The old willow had died many years ago, but the university had preserved its genetic line. When June asked for a tree, they were happy to give him one. This was his promise. This was his apology to the past. He heard the sound of light footsteps on the grass behind him. He turned around. It was Chloe. She was a little taller now. Her braids were different. She ran towards him, a bright smile on her face. "Mr. June!" she called out. Next to her walked her mother, a kind-faced woman named Micha. She was Hana's daughter. She smiled at June, a smile of acceptance and peace. "Hello, Chloe," June said. His voice was warmer now. It had lost its sharp, cold edge. "Did you see the tree? It's getting so big," Chloe said, pointing at the willow sapling. "I see it," June said. "It is growing strong." He visited this spot often. He had bought the small piece of land and donated it to the university as a quiet garden, with the condition that this tree would always be here. It was his touchstone. It reminded him of who he was trying to be. "Are you coming for dinner tonight?" Micha asked. "I am making kimchi jjigae," June smiled. A real, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I would like that very much," he said. This was the other part of his new life. He was a part of their family now, not as the powerful billionaire, but as a friend, as Uncle June. He went to their small, comfortable apartment. He ate meals with them. He helped Chloe with her homework. He listened to stories about Hana. It filled a space in his heart that he never knew was empty. They sat together on a bench near the young tree. Chloe told him about her school and her friends. She talked about wanting to be a doctor one day, to help people on the new colony worlds. June listened intently. He was no longer the man who was too busy for children. "Your grandmother would be very proud of you," he told her. Later, after Micha and Chloe had gone home, June stayed by the tree. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. He thought about the long, strange journey that had brought him here. He had lived 2 lives. In his first life, he was a boy full of dreams. Then he became a man who thought dreams were for fools. He built a fortress of money and power around himself. He thought he was safe inside, but he was just a prisoner. Then a little girl knocked on the door of his fortress. She handed him a key. The key was a simple diary. It unlocked his prison. He did not get his first life back. That was impossible, but he got a second chance. He was building a new life, a better life, a life that had meaning. His company, Ethelgard, was still powerful. It was still rich, but now it was a force for good. It was known for its hospitals and its schools. It was known for its fair treatment of workers. The name Kim June no longer inspired fear. It inspired respect, and sometimes it inspired hope. He stood up and walked over to the young willow tree. He put his hand on its slender trunk. The bark was smooth. "I am trying, Hana," he whispered to the quiet air. "I am trying to find him." He knew the boy from the willow tree was still a part of him. He saw him in the satisfaction of a project that helped people. He felt him in the warmth of a shared meal with a family. He heard him in the sound of his own laughter, which was no longer a rare thing. He had not erased his past. He had redeemed it. He was using the empire he built for all the wrong reasons to do all the right things. He left the garden as the stars began to appear in the twilight sky. His personal transport was waiting, but he decided to walk for a while. He walked through the university streets watching the students. They were young and full of dreams, just like he had been once. He did not feel envy. He felt a sense of connection. He was helping to build a future where their dreams could come true without costing them their souls. When he got back to his building, he did not go to his old office on the 200th floor. He had a new home lower down with a terrace full of plants. It was not as high, but the view was better because he was not looking down on the world anymore. He was a part of it. On his desk, next to a model of a new medical frigate, sat Hana's diary. He did not read it every day anymore. He did not need to. Its message was written on his heart. He had looked into the mirror. He had seen the truth, and he had chosen to change. The story of the little girl and the tycoon was not a sad story. It was a story of hope. It was a story that proved it is never too late to remember who you are. It is never too late to choose a different path. It is never too late to come home. Kim Jun sat on his terrace looking out at the lights of the city. He was alone, but he was not lonely. He was at peace. The journey was not over, but he was on the right road now. And for the first time in a very long time, he was happy.